Hi, it's Pete the Bumbling Modeler. So this is a sort of accidental build which I didn't initially intend to do. I bought this because it was the last one in a shop, and I've always fancied building a Scorpion or a Scimitar. It's just when I was a kid growing up, that was the Action Man tank, and that's the one everyone wanted, and I never did, so now I'll build it as a model. So I bought it because it was just to build later on in the year. I'll move the box now because of the glare, and I'll turn this light on. So let's get that out of the way. So whilst I was working on another project, which is the Suzuki waiting for the paint to dry, I thought I'd clean up all the wheels and all the boring bits so they're all clean and ready to go. So when I come to do this, all I have to do is sling it together. It's the cleaning bit I find frustrating. And then I got carried away and started building the thing, which is something I'm guilty of. So the story so far is I put the hull together and it fitted really well, and it just needed a bit of filler on these joints. And then I looked at it and I realised I'd got the front on the back and the back on the front, so I had to cut those off with a razor saw because they'd cured by then and they'd been filled. Change them around, glue them back on, and then fill that. I've used super glue and talc, and although you can see the line, I've got away with that. I'm quite happy with the join. There's a bit of a ridge there I might have to look at later on. You can feel it, but you can't see it. So I'll have to see if the transmission covers don't fit on. I'll just have to deal with that one. It definitely feels like it's got a bump there, I've only just noticed. So that's ready to go. The turret flew together. I've put a little bit of Mr. Surface around those joints there. Again, I think that was me cleaning up rather than the kit. They'd left little gaps, so Mr. Surface has cured that. The only thing I do need to look at is this plate fits on the bottom of the turret and it overlaps. Presumably you can pick that up. And it's kind of right, but it's kind of not. And I'll try and put a photo up on the screen so you can see what I mean. That overhang ends at the end of those radiuses, so I'm going to assume this has been an overdrawn sort of component, and cut this back a bit. I'll certainly cut that front face down until it's flush with the end of those radii, and I'll probably trim back the sides. There's a bit of an overhang, but that looks a bit extreme down there as well. That might need a bit of a cut back. But all in all, it's going together quite well. I won't give too much of a build sequence on this. What I really want to do is concentrate on the painting, because I want to do this in the white UN colours, because I've never successfully painted anything white. Well, that's not true. I've never successfully painted a military vehicle white. I've done plenty of cars, obviously. So I want to have a go at that, and I think the main focus on this one will be painting it to make it that white UN camouflage, to see how good or bad I am at that. I would imagine as a first attempt it's going to be pretty shocking, but I'll give it a go. So that's where we are with this. Again, this I'll try and minimize. I always say that I'll try and minimize the chatter on this, so I'll just put some key moments, or if I find any areas of the kit that are a bit ambiguous, I'll show you that. Then the main focus on the video will be the painting. So that's where we're going to be. So we'll leave it there for now. I'll get this together up to the point where I can prime it and come back if there's anything you need to see drastically about faults with the kit, but it does seem to be just falling together apart from my mistakes, so I can't see it being a major problem. So I'll leave it for there and come back when it's primed, or when we have to do something a little bit out of the ordinary. Hi, so we're back on the Scimitar. A lot sort of happened since you last saw it, so I've corrected all the problems I created by gluing these on the wrong end. That's all filled and smoothed. I've filled the areas where the axles go on. No need, because there's no detail underneath, so no one's going to look at the underneath. It just makes it look bit tighter than it was. It's not perfect. You can still feel slight ridges, but it'll be okay. The only thing I was a little bit aware of is the fit was a little bit, not sloppy, but they had tolerances in it. So I glued one side, let it set, then glued the other so I could keep an eye on what was going on. And once they were all in place, I put a rule down that edge to make sure they're all at the right height, because you didn't have to twist that far to make a big difference. Ooh, look, that's quite solid. I put a rule along there to make sure they weren't in and out. Once they'd set, say left it overnight, I know it takes forever doing it that way, but once they'd set, I then set the other side up. Same thing again, rule to check alignment, and also at the same time I could put a rule across the actual torsion barb wheel hub things and make sure they were parallel. That's why I let one side set at first. Then I started gluing on bits and pieces around the hull of it. So I'm just starting this end and working my way right around instructions, putting the stuff on so I don't miss anything out. It's not like a Tamiya or an Airfix instruction where it's really obvious what's going on, or it is, it's just I'm not used to looking at the black and white type instructions. So I did make a bit of a mistake on the turret. It said drill these 2 holes out there. I missed that completely because of looking at the other bits and pieces that went on. But if you don't do that before you put the 2 halves together, then you end up not seeing the holes to do it. So again, it's an odd, to me it's odd. So you start there, you're putting on one of the periscopes, you drill holes, put 2 halves together, then there you put on the rest of the periscopes. I don't know why we didn't drill the holes, glue together, then put all the periscopes on in one go, but that's just my reading of it, and it's not a biggie. That basket went on without the location pins anyway, so I didn't bother drilling, I just glued that straight on. So that's coming together quite quickly. There's a lot of, it's the sort of thing I like about it, is bits sticking out everywhere. It's not like a modern tank where it's all flat-sided and really smooth. There's just lumps and bumps and knobbles everywhere. The only other thing I've done that may be of interest is this is the base plate that I said looked a little bit oversized, so I held it up against the turret, gets location pins in, and just, if you remember before, that was sticking out a good couple of millimeters beyond the gun mantlet. So I just scribed a line, cut that off, filed it to fit around here, so you've got an equal gap all the way around, because there is a flat plate under the turret. It just didn't stick out as far as what that one did. So that's been slightly modified so it sort of fits the contours of the turret and doesn't look as obvious. You probably wouldn't notice if you didn't do that. I thought I would. And I started gluing together the various bits of storage. They've all got belled edges on the inside and you fit together really nicely. You just have to make sure you've cleaned those edges so they do sit down. And then once they're on, it just needs the vaguest of scrapes there on a corner to make it look a bit more radius than just a harsh right angle bend. And just, they're done. There's no filling needed or anything. It fits together really well. So that's where we are with that. I'll press on and get everything glued on the hull and the turret. Then we'll think about a coat of primer to see if there's any sort of obvious bloopers or mistakes on it. So you'll see that again in a second. Okay, so the Scorpion's gone together. Not Scorpion, sorry, Scimitar has gone together really well. I'm happy with that. So it's all done and primed. The filling I did underneath is worthwhile. You can see little witness marks, but you haven't got those big chunks coming out. Not that you're ever going to look underneath it. So this is kind of ready for the next stage, and I'm not sure what it's going to be. I'll discuss a couple of things and then I'll move forward. So again, the turret, I like the way how these look really busy with chunks and lumps all over them. Certainly don't understand the word stealth. There's a little slightly raised patch there, but I'll just leave that. I don't think you're ever going to see it. I'll do more harm fixing it. So I've still got to prime the wheels and the sprockets, but there's another kit in the background that needs some priming doing, so I'll prime those when I've got the airbrush loaded for priming the Suzuki I'm working on, so I'm not wasting paint, so that's there. Now with this, it would appear that these are painted a pretty solid white without anything showing through. It's not like a winter camouflage when it's a UN one, sorry, it's going to be white with UN written all over it. The I didn't know it'd be like the winter camouflage where it starts to wear through, but from everything I've seen on photos, I think they're painted at a depot. It's not a field applied paint job, so it won't. I don't need to paint the camouflage and put a watery coat of white on, but I think, unless anyone knows any different, it'd be worth painting this all over green, so that if I do miss anything with the white, like down these little gaps there, it's not a grey prime that's showing through. It's a green as though it's the original factory paint. So I think the plan is that comes off. Get this set up in the airbrush, all over NATO-ish green. I'm not bothered what the green is as long as it's something close. And then come payday, because funds are getting a bit tight at the moment, I'll get some flat white paint, put a bit of buff in it, and then just give it a solid all over coat. Then I can start to pick out details like the lights and put washes in the grills to give them a bit more definition. So that's where we are with that. And I'll get the coat of green on it now, and you might see it just after that, or you might not. It all depends on how long it takes me to get a coat of paint down. So see you with that soon. Okay, so back onto the Scimitar. So I've given it an overall coat of NATO green. That's, as I said before, it's not. I don't want to weather the paint so the green shows through, but if I miss bits like down in these gaps here and behind shovels, I want it to look green, not plastic. So NATO green probably isn't the right colour, but it'll do for what we're doing. And the other thing is I've just free-handed a bit of rubber black paint on these mud flaps because they are rubber, and even though the vehicle's not going to be particularly distressed, the paint is going to flake off the rubber mud flaps. So what I'm going to do is when that's dry, give those a gloss coat to seal it all in, then a couple of coats of hairspray, and then when I spray it white, I can get in with a bit of water and just distress the bottom edges of these as though the paint's worn off or they've been bending and flexing. And that's really the sort of major extent of the weathering this is going to get. The rest of it's going to be an off-white. It's white with a touch of buff just so it's not in-your-face white. And I may put a bit of rust on this metal guard over the exhaust, but the hull itself is made out of an aluminium armour, so that isn't going to rust anyway. I think these side bins are probably steel, so I might be able to put bits and pieces on the hatches, but there won't be any rust streaks on the overall vehicle because it doesn't rust. So it'll be white and dust and grime on it. So that's waiting for that to dry. Gloss coat, let that dry, hairspray, and then we can start spraying it white. All that beer, I've still got to prime the wheels, make the sprockets and spray them green first as well, but that'll be at a later stage. So that's where we are with that, and hopefully this is Saturday morning. By the end of the weekend, that'll be in a sort of solidish block of white, ready to have some highlights put on it, decals on it, and then we can think about putting bits of road grime up the sides of it. So I'll leave it there and you'll see a bit more of it in a minute. Hi, back again on the little Scimitar reconnaissance tank. So everything's had a coat of green, but as I say, I want to do this as a UN model with the white paintwork, so I've based it with green, so any bits I miss will have the NATO green showing through as though it's a base tank. I'm not going to fade it too much, otherwise would have put the black camouflage to go with it, so that would show through, but I want a pretty solid coat. So the only bit you haven't seen before is painting the tyres. I've got a circle template. they've got little holes so you can centre things up when you're working in a drawing office. So I've put a bit of tape over those so you don't get little dots on your paintwork. And I've found the right size hole to click it in, just give a squirt of green, and then it masks off the black for the tyres, which you can't really pick out at the moment because it's quite close to the green as a colour. But when I do the white, I don't have to mask again and just do that, and it's quick. So that's why I've done it this way, because I'm doing 2 colours on it rather than hand painting like I've done before. So I'll keep that handy. As I say, I've coated these mud flaps with hairspray, so once the paint started to cure, and get a stiff brush with some water and start scraping away at those, so the hairspray lifts the white paint and the black will come through. Because I would imagine the mud flaps, no matter how good you keep the tank condition wise, the mud flaps are always going to have the paint peeling off because it's flexible rubber. And as for the white paint, if it had been an automated model, I'd paint it white. So again, harking back to something you haven't seen yet, this little Metro, that white's perfect. It's a solid white. On this, I think it'd look wrong. We need to shift the white a bit so it looks a bit of a dirty white, otherwise it's going to just look like a white slab of a toy. So I've got some, it's actually Tamiya XF2, but I didn't have enough of it, so I've slung in some Tamiya X2 gloss in there. It won't really matter. I'll only be using this for off-white, so I'll label it up separately. And I've got some Tamiya buff there, and all I'm going to do is give it a bit of a mix-up. And blob a few drops of buff in, and it'll just make that white a bit of a yellowy white, and I think that's going to visit. No more than that, but I don't know, you won't pick it up on the camera probably. That's more of a creamy colour now, which will look a lot more realistic when sprayed on the tank, but only needs a few drops like that. We're going to weather over the top of it as well, but that just takes that initial glare off it. So what I'm going to do now is wipe that so I don't get crud all over my bench. Put a few lids on and then get this sprayed white, and when it's cured a bit, I'll come back and show you how I'm going to deal with those mud flaps. So that's what we need. I'll switch off for now, and then next time you see it, it'll be whitish, and we can start that initial stage of weathering. Once that's done, it's going to be a case of sealing it all in, popping the wheels on it, and then starting to put some mud and grime all over it. But first of all, we need to get that white coat on. So that's it for now. I'll be back in a second. Okay, so we've given this its coat of white paint. One thing I have done, just as a sort of tip really, I've written UN white on that white because we know it's contaminated with a buff colour, so it's not a pure white anymore, and I will need to give this gun mantlet another coat. It looks a little bit greener than that than the rest of it, but overall it's a sort of fairly solid coat of white. It's got a few shadows down on the sides there, which is okay. There's a few paint blobs, but I think we'll lose them with weathering. One or two of the wheels, like here, came to a bit of harm. That was because I wasn't cleaning the circle template between sprays out of laziness, and the paint built up and crept underneath. That's easy enough, touched up with a bit of paint and a paintbrush, so it's not the end of the world. So what I'm going to do now, before the paint's cured, it's set and it's hard. It's been about 2 hours since I sprayed it, I suppose, something like that. Let's put a glove on so my fingers don't get hot and mark the paint. Strip off the bits I don't want so the wheels can come off. Get rid of them for now. They'll be glued on when I've got the tracks on in a minute. It's not. By mixing that gloss white and the matte white, so I've got quite a nice satin finish, which I didn't expect. I thought it'd be more matte than that, but that's handy because it can decal straight onto this now. Then give it a flat coat to seal everything in, then carry on with the weathering. So that's worked to my advantage. It's just one of these lucky accidents. So get this I think what's happened, that might not be coming off. That's it. I think what happened there, the paint's still a bit tacky. I got excited, put it on, and just glued itself on. But you're never going to see them scuffs. But that's, I'll give that a little rub down before I put the turret on properly, so it's still got a bit of rotation. But that's all it was. It was the paint was sticking to that, so I shouldn't have put it on quite as quickly as that. But that happens, and that's the sort of level of tackiness I want on the paint to do this next bit. So what I'll need is some water. And sometimes this works for me, sometimes it doesn't. So this could be a flop, but I'll film it anyway. But I want to soak the paint here where it's on top of the hairspray. And I wouldn't do this all over the tank. I would do it if it was a desert vehicle with a temporary camouflage on it, or it was a Gulf War aeroplane or something where they had that temporary paint put on. But this will chip off far too much, so it's good for what we're doing. But on this rubber, because you want this as to look all peeled and flaky, but too much of it will flake off. Just takes a while to get going. Too much of it will flake off. I might have to give it a bit of a helping hand with the pad. Actually, it's a bit too glossy for this. You want this one quite matte and quite gloss for decals. Let's give it a little bit of a helping hand on the corner to get it lift. But once you get it to lift, it'll activate the hairspray underneath and it'll peel up. Just break that down a little bit. Start to get it to get the corner there. So that should start to get underneath that and cause a bit of lifting. It takes a while to work, but you just keep going with the stiff brush. Those little scratches are getting bigger and bigger, and that's what we want. So eventually that will penetrate this paint layer and into that hairspray and start to lift her up. That's actually a lot tougher than I expected. It normally works a lot quicker than this. Let's get this one started too. I've started on that. Let's get a water on there, and while that's starting to soak into the paint, we can done this a million times and it's cooperated to do it on camera and not, but it's starting to work now. You can see these little scratches getting bigger and bigger, and it's lifting the paint off the bottom edges, which is one of the key areas, because that's the bit where the white's going to get dragged off and the rubber mat underneath is going to show. So it's starting to work now. You can see it's starting to lift, and that's the water getting into the reactivating hairspray underneath the thing. So I've probably left this a bit long to do it, and I'm doing it on a gloss paint rather than a matte, which is why it's slower than normal. So while we're waiting for that, we'll just give these a little bit of a scuff. I think I've done two things a bit wrong here. You can see the black flecks are starting to come through. Had it been a matte paint, I probably would have put on a slightly thinner coat because it covers better. And it would have dried quicker, so I could have done this quicker. But this had more time to cure because I can't handle the soft finish on the gloss quite as quickly. And even now I'm wearing a glove, so it's two things fighting against me. But I didn't expect this to be as glossy as this when I finished. But let's keep persevering. But if you look down the edge, it's really starting to open. So what I want is the paint to start to peel upwards from the bottom edges and be a bit beaten up in the middle as it's been going through brush and undergrowth, and these have been bending and flexing, the paint's been cracking, so it will get there. It's a matter of patience to get it to activate that layer, but I think probably an hour less. Oh, there, it's starting to really go now. That's really starting. So if we concentrate on that bit, the paint will get underneath onto the hairspray, which is covering the black. And we'll start to get this peel effect. Actually, that's gone below the black, actually, so I might have to, I think I'm going a bit too vigorously. I can always touch that in with a bit of black later on. That was me going too far to try and get this to work instead of being patient and letting the water do its trick. I have left it too long though, that's the trouble. Because this is going on a bit, what I'll do is switch off the camera till the water's activated the hairspray. Then we'll come back where I've gone a bit too deep there, so I'll just come along with a bit of black paint and use that as a guide to paint it in, because it's the sort of chip I'm looking for. It's just, I've been a bit too vigorous on it trying to get it to work, and it's gone right through. So yeah, this is things going wrong live. So we get it on the back. Let's leave that there for a minute. We'll get it activated and working, then I'll come back and show you one of the flaps as I'm doing it. So I'll just pull back and then we'll be back in a minute. Okay, so we're getting more of the effect I wanted now. I've changed over to toothbrush. It's a bit stiffer and it's just stabbing at it till you get the paint peeling away that you find to be particularly attractive, and that is the rubber black colour underneath. I hadn't gone right through it just because it's looking a bit whiter with the pale stuff from here blending in with it. So it's just, I just want it so it's been looking like the paint's just worn away from that with the continual flexing. So I probably won't do much. I don't want them the same on both sides. I want a kind of irregular pattern of wear. I just want that bit of visual interest really that you get with this. It has worked more successfully in the past. I don't know why. I think it is a combination of the paint being glossy than I expected and me leaving it too long. So we're getting some sort of paint peeling there. And on the back, I started that again. We're getting it. We don't want to go massively on the back because that doesn't have the, you're not reversing into everything all the time, so it doesn't have the same level of abuse as the front, but just to show we have got paint peeling and flaking off these areas is what we're looking for. So dark, actually I don't know, I've gone right through all the layers of paint on that or not, you know. I may have done, but I can always paint it in with black in places. I think normally I've had this working a treat. I don't know why as soon as the camera's turned on it decides it doesn't want to play ball. It's a bit weird, but that's what it wants to do. It's what it wants to do, I suppose, isn't it? Yeah, I think what I'll end up doing then is just brush painting a thin coat of rubber black in the middle of this, then just sponge chipping over it. But all is not lost. It's I think I've been a bit over vigorous after leaving it on too long. I should have done it sooner, but it's given me a pleasing pattern I can paint to. So although it's a bit of a disaster because it's gone right through the paint, it's also not a disaster because of it's given me a guide rather than me imagining where paint's going to wear off. I can it's gone That's all right, that's the sort of effect I was after. So yeah, okay, we'll call that a not complete disaster, if not a complete success. I'll just rectify that where I can and I'll be back. Hi, we've come to the realisation that the video is going to be quite long if I carried on as I am. So I'm going to end at this point now where we've got to the point where the basic paintwork's done. And then I'll upload a separate video that'll cover the decals, the weathering and the overall finish of the vehicle. Now, as you can see from that, the Scimitar is finished and complete and ready to go. So I'll upload both videos simultaneously, but it'll give you the option to watch the weathering side of things, the building side of things, or both, without having to sit through hours of endless video. And to be honest, it also does me a favour. The time it takes to upload the video grows exponentially with its length, so half-hour videos are ideal for me. So we'll end this here, and within minutes of you seeing this, the part 2 will be uploaded so you can see decals, weathering, filters and washes. So thanks for watching so far. I'll see you in the next part. Bye.